Production support for InFocus is provided by Smithville, a locally owned business serving central and southern Indiana since 1922 with residential and business internet, voice, and security services. Smithville, local pride, global technology. Information at smithville.net. Hoosier Energy, providing electricity for central and southern Indiana electric cooperatives and their member customers. Information at hepn.com. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
In 2008, the National Endowment for the Arts reported public participation in the arts declined to its lowest level since 1982, when the NEA began its poll. The survey showed more people today are interested in finding new media online rather than enjoying music, theater, and art in person. But the demand for the arts remains. The Indiana Arts Commission says people who participate in the arts are 2 to 3 times more likely to be involved in civic and volunteer activities, and 2/3 of American adult travelers say they included a cultural, arts, heritage, or historic activity while on a trip of 50 miles or more. Tonight, we'll discuss the economic impact the arts have on South Central Indiana's economy as we put the arts in focus. And thanks for joining us for this edition of In Focus. I'm Stan Jastrzebski. If you have questions for one of our studio experts during tonight's program, please email them to us at infocus@indiana.edu, or you can always leave comments on our website at indianapublicmedia.org/infocus. South Central Indiana has a vibrant local arts scene, whether it be Columbus with its distinguished architecture and various art galleries. The scenic hills of Brown County have made Nashville a haven for landscape artists, and Bloomington is a one-stop shop for music, theater, and art. A 40-mile stretch of highway, which has come to be known as Indiana Arts Road 46, connects the artistic identities of Bartholomew, Brown, and Monroe counties. But as WTIU's Alex Roy reports, artists attempting to establish themselves in these communities sometimes find it challenging, especially when their craft is prohibitively expensive.
Bloomington resident Abby Gitlitz describes it as being similar to heroin: expensive, hard to find, and extremely addicting. Gitlitz has been blowing glass since 1997, but for the past 2 years has had to rent space and drive 50 miles to a studio in Indianapolis to do so. But the most expensive thing is something you can't even see: the power needed to run this. The furnace.
What we do is the furnace behind us has a crucible that has about 350 pounds of molten glass. We take glass out, we add more glass in to melt it. So that's going to stay on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week until it cracks.
For $60 an hour, Gitlitz teaches students how to blow glass. Her goal? Raise enough money to start her own studio in Bloomington.
It's a lot of work trying to start a studio. If I were somewhere where we're established, life would be a lot easier, but I'd rather be in Bloomington and get it going here. All right. That looks awesome.
But the revenue Gitlitz generates will only get her so far, which is where organizations like the Indiana Arts Commission come in.
The Indiana Arts Commission is a public agency, so it's part of the state government of Indiana, and its purpose is to connect people to the arts in the state, so to connect all citizens to the arts in the state, and specifically we're there to also support, encourage arts organizations, arts projects, and individual artists in our state as well.
The IAC awarded 450 grants last year to artists and arts organizations. The criteria used to determine how the money is distributed is specific.
Public access, so it's the ability for the project or the artist to reach all of our citizens, all types of citizens. And then there is educational value, so we wanted to have some enduring educational value. And finally, management and accountability.
Gitlitz is the founder of the Bloomington Creative Glass Center, which operates with those criteria in mind. She's working on partnering with Indiana University and has already chosen an ideal location along the Beeline Trail, which would make her eligible for several other grants. And the women she's teaching today are not her average students.
So the people you're seeing here are the people who are hooked. They're hardcore. These are the people now who are going to be the board of the Bloomington Creative Glass Center. We can provide the small stuff, and we can provide the people, the manpower, the excitement, the energy, the expertise. I can build all the equipment in a hot shop. But now what we need is someone to take a leap of faith with us and go forward.
But it will take a lot of work, and even then, Gitlitz is realistic and doesn't expect her center to be profitable.
People don't get into glassblowing because they want to make money. People get into glassblowing because they're insane and possibly were chopped on their heads as children.
In the current economy, Ricky says less state and federal support is available today to help artistic entrepreneurs like Gitlitz. Right now, she has to rely on open access studios like GRT and the intrigue of South Central Hoosiers interested in playing with 2100-degree molten glass. For WTIU News, I'm Alex Roy.
And my co-host this evening is Annie Corrigan, WFIU arts producer. Annie, good evening. Tell us a little bit about who you're going to be talking to.
Hi, Stan. It's really good to be here. I'm sitting here with Sherry Knighton-Schwant. She's the chair of the board of directors of the Lotus Education and Arts Foundation. So we'll speak with her in just a few moments.
Okay, Annie, looking forward to that. Joining us tonight in the WTIU studios are Brown County Art Guild Executive Director Jamie Sweeney, Columbus Area Arts Council Marketing Director Donna Stouter, and Maya Michelson, the Assistant Economic Development Director for the Arts with the City of Bloomington. Thanks to the three of you for being here. I wanted to talk a little bit about what Alex mentioned in that opening package, which is the idea of Indiana 46 connecting Bloomington and Nashville and Columbus. And I got to thinking about it, and these are three communities you could easily see as competing with one another because they excel at different things. And I wondered about the push to combine the three together into one area that would draw in people in hopes that they would go perhaps to all three in a single day. Maya, why don't we start with you and we'll come back this way. Give me your recollections of how that came to be and how it's worked.
Well, part of this program, the Art Trail, 46 Art Trail, is a partnership with the Indiana Artisan Program and the State Arts Commission and statewide tourism in an effort to try to highlight specific cultural areas, trails within the state. There's a glass trail, and there are some other cultural trails. The idea was to try to combine communities or find ways for communities along a specific route or had a specific sort of type of work or something they were known for, find ways for them to work together to sort of harness the power of their creative communities to create destinations, larger sort of regional arts destinations. And so Bloomington, Brown County, and Columbus have always worked closely together. Our Convention and Visitors Bureau work closely together. Our arts communities actually work closely together. There's a lot of inflow and outflow of artists between all those communities. And so it was a natural synergy, I think, for us to work together on this particular partnership. Again, Columbus has such strong, architectural heritage and continues to lead the country in what it does architecturally. And also in public art. Brown County, obviously, its notoriety as the arts colony of the Midwest, and obviously the eclectic nature of what Bloomington does. We each do something quite well, but together we're sort of a powerhouse arts region, which is pretty exciting to think about, again, what we can accomplish when we sort of do things together. And I think going forward, that's going to be how arts communities succeed, is joining forces with either other artists or other communities to have a bigger impact.
Donna, how do you see it?
Well, I think the thing that's fascinating is the juxtaposition of these three communities. They each bring something very different to the consumer of the arts, and the built environment in Columbus is part of what, people come every day, hundreds, to see the architecture. That was a vision of J. Irwin Miller, and he had the foresight to understand that would make this city unique. Brown County, I have spent 25 years in Brown County. It's one of the most beautiful, friendly places in the world, but it's also, there's artists everywhere. They're everywhere. And then Bloomington is just, it's where you can fill up the whole shopping cart in Bloomington. It's fabulous. But having these getting on 46, if you get off on 65 and just start driving, it's a great experience. You're going to see a lot of interesting and beautiful things.
Jamie, you're smack in the middle there in Nashville and in Brown County. Have you found that people who normally would have gone to Bloomington or to Columbus are making their way into the middle, or vice versa? People who have told you they would first come down and go to Nashville are then migrating to the two cities on either end of the road?
Yes, I think that's something I've heard really often. People come into Columbus off of 65, and then they stop into Nashville, and then lots of times they go out to Belmont, where T.C. Steele Historical Site is, and then on to Bloomington. And I agree. I think I wouldn't look at the three towns as competing with each other because we're each so unique in what we have to offer, but I would look at it as complementing one another. And also I'd like to think of it as more of than a one-day stop. It would be a really wonderful weekend trip for families to make. It's an easy destination coming right off of 65. And then it's a beautiful drive. I mean, all the way from Columbus to Nashville to Bloomington is just gorgeous scenery. So I think that we each have something so different to offer the people that come that I would see us as just complementing each other. And I agree with Maya when she said working together is what's going to make the arts communities survive and thrive.
We'll hold those thoughts. We'll get back to you three in just a minute. Right now we're going to go over to Annie Corrigan in the WFIU studios with her guest. Annie?
Thanks, Stan. I'm sitting here with Sherry Knighton-Schwant. She's the chair of the board of directors of the Lotus Foundation. So good to have you here.
Great to be here, Annie.
So for the 362 days of the year that the Lotus Festival is not taking place, tell me what the foundation does.
Well, as you know, the biggest event that we do have is the festival coming up this weekend, but throughout the year, we have educational programs for communities in this area and outside of Monroe County, particularly the Lotus Blossoms program, which focuses on K through 12. And it has been a very successful program in that we attract about 10,000 people to the festival each year, well, say 7,000 to 8,000, while the Blossoms, we serve about 10,000 kids. So that's pretty extraordinary when we think of bringing artists from all over the world. We plant them within these schools throughout Monroe, Orange County, and some other counties to take advantage of a very different cultural experience. And sometimes these children have never been exposed to an artist like we have. And it's just been a wonderful experience for them. Every year it grows a little bit more. We try to add more schools. We try to make it as inexpensive for the schools as we possibly can, while keeping our costs low as well.
Well, let's talk dollars and cents then. Who pays to get these artists into the schools?
Well, as part of the board of directors, it is the board's role to fundraise for the foundation, and part of that fundraising has to do with Lotus Blossoms. So we're beating the streets and talking to our friends and family about supporting Blossoms, but so obviously that money goes toward bringing the artists in. We ask that the schools pay $300 for an artist to come to their school, and what's been unfortunate with some funding cuts for the last year, if not 2 years, some of those schools that have traditionally been able to host an artist have not been able to afford that $300 because of those extreme cuts. So that has been very unfortunate, and we are always looking at different models of how to present Lotus Blossoms, and we may have to, over time, come up with a new model so that the schools that are getting hurt the most by these budget cuts will not also not be able to have an artist in their school once a year.
And you have an Adopt a School program that helps with that a little bit.
Yes.
We're going to go back to talking about the dollars and cents financial aspect of the Lotus Festival in just a few moments, but Stan, back to you.
Thanks, Annie. I want to address this next question to you, Jamie, and that is, you heard at the beginning that the NEA is finding that more and more people want online offerings for their arts, and you could see in a place like Bloomington, which has IU, or a place like Columbus, which has technology manufacturers like Cummins, it would be logical to think of those places as places you might have in-depth website creation to give people these sorts of offerings, but in a place like Brown County, which seems much more homemade in my mind, you know, my words, not theirs. How do you keep up with trends like that?
Well, the Brown County Art Guild has actually just created a wonderful website. So I think part of it is doing our best to keep up with those trends while not compromising our, like you said, kind of down-home appeal that is Nashville. I think that we have lots of people working together now in Nashville that are kind of coming together, like the Arts Alliance, and we had an Experience Brown County event this summer, and I think a lot of the promotions are becoming online promotions, as well as the way we beat the streets with our posters and talking with the CVB and all that. But I think that it has to be a combination of staying true to your roots, which is a very homey, welcoming environment in Nashville, but also stretching our comfort zone a bit to also delve into the online world itself.
Maya, we'll start with you on this next one. We'll come back down the panel. Tell me a little bit, just quickly, each of you, how your areas are being helped by your state and local governments in terms of support for the arts. Has it increased, declined, plateaued? We'll start with Bloomington, helped where it comes to promoting the arts and making them flourish?
Well, it's funny that you asked the question. I was actually had a very long phone conversation with Louis Rickey earlier today, who's the executive director of the Arts Council. The Indiana Arts Commission, sort of talking about the future of arts funding and sort of where that's going as it relates to how it impacts local arts organizations. And I think where we're going is a bit of a strategic realignment in that there are certain areas that will continue to be funded from the state, federal, and local level, and there are going to be some areas that probably go to the wayside, at least for a while. I mean, for example, the State Arts Commission has cut their arts and education grant programs and things like that, but they're continuing to invest in areas like technical assistance. So they're continuing to fund programs or grants or projects where the idea is to build capacity for organizations and artists. In Indiana, to its credit, the Arts Commission is one of the few state arts commissions that still funds, makes individual grant funds available to individual artists. And very few states do that still. And so I think what we're going to be looking at is some very sort of specific areas that will continue to be supported. And there, again, there'll be some areas that won't.
Donna, what are you seeing in Columbus as far as state and local government support?
Well, what we're seeing is probably the trend across the nation. We're having to do more with less. But we're also, I've noticed that when you mention technical assistance, we have a regional coordinator, and Jeff Keel, and he works in Region 9, counties that are southeastern Indiana. And we've found ways to utilize every talent that our staff has and any talent out in the region to take it and teach it to somebody else, where we would normally have to pay for that sort of technical assistance. The other thing that we do receive money from IAC, and we grant that money. It's pass-through money. So we try to help our arts organizations locally by raising money independently from us. It's through the United Arts Fund. We raise money and then we can re-grant and help them out that way. So we've made up some of it, but I agree with Maya. Part of this is just going to something's going to have to probably fall away.
All right, well, we'll get more back to that in just a minute. We need to go back over to Annie in the WFIU studios, though, right now. Annie?
Thank you, Stan. I'm here with Sherry Knighton-Schwant of the Lotus Foundation. So the Lotus Festival, that's a big thing of what the foundation does. Talk about how much it costs to put on an event like this. It's a 3-day festival of world music and arts.
Yes, as, again, a member of the board, we have our own goals for raising funds for the festival, and this year our goal was $107,000, and we've exceeded that. But we always have to remind people that the majority of our funding comes from people who are buying tickets for that festival. So that is what's critical for making sure that we can, at the end of the day, be able to pay all the bills for the festival itself. So the ticket sales brings in more than what we can raise. So that's what we're counting on the most. And every year we have been able to meet that goal, with the exception of a few. So we're always counting on people from the Bloomington region, but also outside of that region and out of state, coming to the festival each and every year, and that audience continues to broaden.
Thousands of people come to town for the Lotus
Yes.
Festival. Let's talk about the ticket price. $56 for a festival pass in advance, $66 the day of. As we heard earlier in the program, more and more people are going online to experience the arts. Fewer people are going to live shows. Convince somebody that they should shell out $56 to go to see the Lotus Festival instead of seeing videos of the bands free online.
Well, I can think of a number of reasons why they should go to a festival like Lotus rather than sitting behind their computer and watching a band, simply because of the experience, of the excitement, of the people. It's a block party, and you know, how many block parties can you go to where you're going to be seeing a dozen or so performers for $56 for 3 or 4, 3 nights? And when you start adding up a ticket price for an artist for one, this is really pittance compared to that. And we realize that for some, it's still an expensive outlay of cash, but that's why we always have free events, and particularly Saturday in the Park. At 3rd Street Park, where you can see a variety of artists, you can experience hands-on artistry and do all kinds of things that sort of are part of that whole cultural experience. It's one thing to just listen and hear a band and maybe see some things. It's another thing to be able to be standing next to them and experiencing a culture that's all their own. And I don't think there's any comparison whatsoever. So it's just the excitement and the buzz and the warmth that you feel being part of such a cultural festival like this.
Sherry Knighton-Schwant, she is the chair of the board of directors for the Lotus Foundation. Thank you so much for coming in today.
Pleasure.
Stan, back to you.
Thanks, Annie. When we were leaving off just a minute ago, we were talking about how some things might unfortunately fall by the wayside with the landscape the way it is. And I wondered, we talked more about that in a programmatic sense just a minute ago. I wondered if that affects local artists and local businesses too. Jamie, we'll start with you and in Brown County and go back that way. Lots and lots of little artisan shops in Brown County and in Nashville. Are you seeing some of the smaller shops sort of come and go with the ebb and flow of the economy?
Well, I think that's happening everywhere. I don't think that's unique to Nashville, but I also want to stress on a positive note, I'm seeing a lot more shops and studios opening up in Nashville itself, which are artist-run studios. So we're kind of seeing a trend back towards what Nashville was founded on, which is more of an art colony. And I think that's only going to be good for the artists to really concentrate on handmade goods. So I've noticed several new studios opening up this past summer and this fall.
I guess the question might be, how long can they last, though?
Well, I think that depends on how well we promote ourselves. Nashville has a lot of tourism. I mean, it is not in shortage of tourism. It's the challenge is the buying tourists and people to come and actually purchase goods, purchase artwork. And I'd say at the Brown County Art Guild, our original painting sales are very up this year over last year. And so I really am looking at this kind of in a very optimistic, cautiously optimistic frame of mind, because I'm seeing more art-related businesses opening, and I'm seeing painting sales go up, and I'm also seeing an increase in tourism. Our foot traffic is up 38% over last year. So I think it's not necessarily going in a wrong direction. I think we just need to be very careful because funds are tight for everybody.
Donna, we think about Columbus and its architecture, and we think about it, I think, on a citywide scale. You think about this whole city that's committed to this architectural vision, and then you see on a more local level places like Hotel Indigo opening an art gallery inside of it. How are the people who are doing small business ventures like that faring in your city?
Well, I think they're doing pretty well. First of all, there's a vibrancy in downtown Columbus that is stunning with the building of the new commons, culinary arts. I mean, the fact that there are wonderful restaurants within walking distance of my office, and that's new. Sahara Coast, this wonderful place, was refurbished and brought back to life by a local businessman. So we have that kind of thing is happening. You mentioned the Phi Gallery at Hotel Indigo. I work with the Columbus Museum of Art and Design, and I curate that gallery. That I could book that 3 years in advance because local artists really want a place to show their work. So what I'm looking for, and I think we all have to do, is look at ways that we can provide free spaces for these people where they can come and show their artwork and have the opportunity to sell their artwork.
Maya, let me ask you about that idea in Bloomington. There's a lot of space downtown that's devoted to art, and some of that is kind of high rent space. But what about the idea that Donna just brought up of sort of the pro bono art space, just really art for art's sake? Is there an opportunity on both ends of the economic scale?
Well, I mean, I think we've certainly seen restaurants and what we'd say sort of non-traditional art spaces open their doors to artists. We have a lot of our local restaurants who exhibit art and the work of artists regularly. So, I mean, Bloomington, I think, gets that integration of visual art, the arts within sort of its business operations in a great way. I think, there's always an opportunity out there to bring art into new spaces. And I think we're seeing businesses who may have a vacant storefront for now be amenable to a pop-up gallery or a pop-up. For example, the Lotus store is currently an empty storefront in Fountain Square, south of the square in downtown Bloomington. Lotus is selling its festival merchandise there. Great partnership between the arts and local business. So I think for Bloomington, our local business community, I think, has embraced it and continues to embrace it further and further as they find ways to integrate the arts into sort of their business operation, because they see it's good business. They see people are interested. They see people patronize places that have local art on the walls or serve local food on their tables and things like that. So I think for Bloomington, it's been smart business to integrate the arts into pretty much everywhere we possibly can.
Well, my thanks to the three of you. We've unfortunately run out of time, but I think this is one of those discussions that, it's interesting, the three perspectives that the three of you brought to it, because you are one and the same, and then at the same time you are three distinct entities that I think have come together in an interesting way in the last year or so. So my thanks to the three of you for being here and allowing us to quiz you a little bit about how that's worked. Thanks so much. My thanks also to my co-host this evening, Annie Corrigan. Annie, thanks for pinch hitting. We appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Dan. It was fun.
Please do send us your questions for our next program. Our email address is infocus@indiana.edu. You can also leave a comment, or you can see portions of this show by visiting our website. That is indianapublicmedia.org/infocus. And thanks to all of you who watched and listened. Have a nice night.
Production support for InFocus is provided by Smithville, a locally owned business serving central and southern Indiana since 1922 with residential and business internet, voice, and security services. Smithville, local pride, global technology. Information at smithville.net. Hoosier Energy, providing electricity for central and southern Indiana electric cooperatives and their member customers. Information at hepn.com. And by viewers like you. Thank you.